Thank you. Sorry. Mute. It's a beautiful button. Anyway, I'm Liz Cresci, strategic growth coach with Life Coach University. And I am super excited to be here today. I was in the process of reminding everybody that Let's Coach 2023 is brought to you by lifecoachuniversity.com and just encouraging people to go check it out. Let's Coach 2023 is here every day in case you're not aware. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. Super excited to have you here. Um, we have sessions at least once a day, a half an hour group conversation coaching session. This is for you. So let's make it whatever it is that you need today. We also have 1 hour PIF talks, pay it forward. They are brought to you by a bunch of coaches from Life Coach University throughout the month. So do check that out. Just a reminder, Q&A is the best way to communicate. If you have something that's on your mind, drop it in there. I'm happy to switch gears and talk about that if you'd like to. If you want to join in the conversation with me, I would love that as well. All comments are welcome. I do keep it anonymous, so no worries there. Let's get started. Today, I want to talk to you about struggle. This is something that happens to everyone, right? One of my favorite sayings is that which doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And believe me, there are times that I know myself and other people I know well feel like Atlas with the weight of the world on their shoulders. But I promise you that you are never given more than you can handle. And as Frederick Douglass said, and a famous American years ago, said, "There is no if there is no struggle, there is no progress." And that I want to bring to you the idea that as much as it stinks and as hard as it is in the moment, there's always something to learn or there's always a way to grow. And it's been said that there's a gift and opportunity in everything, right? So I know when you're mired in that struggle, it's so hard to see through to the end. And that's really what I want to talk to you about because I am super passionate about helping people get through that struggle and to, create the life that they've always wanted or that they could dream about having. And it's for me it starts there, right? You know, it's developing the strength that you need for tomorrow is what's happening today. And there's a couple of questions that I like to ask because it helps me understand more about people and it also helps me identify the people that I just like, that I love to work with. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those questions today. So the first one is, do you struggle to move forward in your life? I'm here to tell you that I haven't met a person yet that doesn't have some sort of a struggle. And you don't have to have a major event or a major happening in your life to be able to call it a struggle, right? I think that there's a school of thought, certainly in people's heads. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a cultural thing, or even a global thing or a neighborhood thing, but we tend to be in our heads and we beat ourselves up a lot. It's like, it's when we start to feel overwhelmed, then it's like we just we throw ourselves on the ground and we start kicking ourselves and beating ourselves up and doing things we would never do to another human being because for some reason we're not able to move through it or we're not able to understand why we're feeling overwhelmed in the moment. And that's just not the way to do it. So if you're struggling to move forward in your life, I'm telling you that's okay. And if you realize that there's a struggle there, that's part of the battle and you're on your way to growth. So you're not alone. I just want to kind of reiterate that for you. How about feeling like you need a change, but everything you can think of is just, it makes it feel the same, right? Nothing is moving forward in that moment or in that chapter in your life or in that day or in that month or whatever it might be. And that also is super normal and shared by more people than I can count. And this is where we need to realize as people, we have the ability, right? Choice is everything. Everything for us in the moment, we have choices we can make. But you can't make those choices unless you know what your options are. And if you have exhausted everything that you can think about to get through that, well, you're using the same thinking that brought you into that place. And no judgment, right? We evolve as we evolve, and we our thinking and our patterns and our habits are created by the way we do things and the experiences that we've had and the things we've exposed ourselves to. So perhaps you just need a new perspective, or perhaps you need somebody to kind of talk that through with you, because nothing is insurmountable. Nothing, absolutely nothing, except maybe death and taxes. Um, and then there's that quicksand feeling, like, the harder that you struggle, the worse it gets, the deeper it becomes. And that too is perfectly normal. And it's, but that's where you have to stop. And that's the first part of the methodology that I use with people is you just need to stop. Like, stop the presses, get off the merry-go-round, whatever you want to say, just stop, freeze, so that you can one, breathe, because struggle gets harder when your body is not in tune to that and you're not breathing. So breathe and then take a moment. And then it's time to look around and check where things are at. That's the hardest part of getting through struggle. So I see we have a comment here that says they struggle with shyness. And as soon as they start talking, they have a worry about what people others think of them. This, I'm here, it's, you're not alone in this either. So many people have the same type of thought process when it comes to, for some people it's just general conversation with people they don't know. It might be a party, like that kind of atmosphere that would bring it out. It doesn't have to be standing in front of an auditorium of 10, 50, 100 people or more, right? That fear is real. However, that fear is because you're focusing on yourself, right? And I, no disrespect, no judgment meant, but when you're having a conversation with somebody, you're coming from your perspective. And I'd like to invite you, the next time you find yourself in, a relatively benign position that you might still have some of that shyness or uncomfortableness. I don't mean jumping up in front of a classroom, right? I mean, maybe it's the next time you're standing in line for the grocery store and you can find a way to strike up a conversation with someone, or having a work conversation, or meeting somebody that perhaps a friend or family bring around, and you have a chance to interact with somebody you don't know in a situation that you might feel that shyness. I invite you to take a breath and think about, how can you add value to them? How can you focus on them? Because when you take the focus off yourself, you're going to lessen that anxiety. If your purpose in that moment becomes to do something nice or do something valuable for the other person, then it's going to lessen that shyness and anxiety, because then it's not about you. When we allow those interactions to when we allow ourselves to self focus in those interactions and for it to become how we show up and being nervous about it, it's going to be really evident, right? So perhaps it's a conversation, let's say, you know, your partner brings a colleague home for drinks or dinner, or you meet them in the, at a work event, and they introduce you, and you say hello and everything, and maybe ask them a question about themselves. Focus your attention to them, be curious about them, and that will dissipate. Compliment them on something. My partner has said so many wonderful things about you. Can you tell me why you're in, you've chosen to work in this company? Or can you tell me what brought you here? Or um wow, I love your shirt. Where did you get it? Like, it can be benign. Start with baby steps, but when you focus outward, you'll lessen a lot of that social shyness, the anxieties, or any of that happens, because you're no longer worried about you, you're worried about the other person. I hope that makes some sense. And I hope that helped. So, as you're struggling with these things, there really is no right way and there's no wrong way. And the key is to get to know you, because there's something that you're not responding to within you. And it could be as simple as you're focused too much on yourself, you need to focus outward. It could be that you're just looking so hard. Have you ever um have you ever searched for something in your home? Like, maybe you misplaced your keys, or you misplaced an important document, or something, and you've spent hours and like the whole afternoon or evening searching for this thing. And then somebody else comes in the room, your child, your friend, your roommate, your partner, whomever, parent, doesn't matter. And you say, oh my God, I cannot find my keys. And they turn around and go, oh, these keys? And they pick it up. It's been in front of your face the whole time, but you couldn't see it. That's what happens when we get mired in the struggle, and it just feels like it's sucking us down into the quicksand, because we're trying so hard. We can't see what's in front of us, we can't see the opportunities and the interactions. That's why the first thing you have to do is go, time out, stop, I need to regroup. And when you regroup, I invite you to write them down. Brain dump what's in here, what you feel, the struggle, the anxiety that you're getting. Put it down on paper, each one. Take a line, just keep going. I'm overwhelmed by the fact that, I've got this huge project at work, and I've got all these bills that have come in, and I'm not making enough money, and my kids need this, and my parents need that, and my friends need this. And, like, honestly, if you listed it all out and just said it out loud, of course it's overwhelming. But there's something magical that happens when you take it from here and you put it on paper, because putting it on paper allows it to almost stop the cyclone, right? I know this is kind of a crazy image to think about, and um but when you're in that throe of overwhelm and things are just like swirling around in your head, like they would be in a tornado, and when you focus on one thing, you start to see all the problems around it, and it just looks, what I call it, it grows legs, right? It becomes kind of this monster. When you take it from here and put it on paper, it just kind of settles that, and it stops swirling around in your head, and it becomes more logical, I guess. It takes emotion out of it. It takes um any of the other parts of the legs that grow when it's in your brain. Like, it's so weird how that works. But it does work. So we put it down on paper. And then from there, we can step back. And this all does not have to be done in one sitting, right? But it's a good idea to take the time now or in the whenever you want to schedule a time with yourself or schedule it with a friend, somebody that you trust, or schedule it with a coach who you know is their only their only side is your side, right? They want to champion you and they want to see you move forward. And in order to do that, you have to take stock of where you are. So you have to do the check, right? Check and see where things are. Check and see what's driving you crazy. Check and see what's giving you anxiety and making you anxious, and where you feel held back. And then put it down on paper. Record it, right? And there's times too that it doesn't matter how good your intentions are. Something's always holding you back and keeping you stuck. That happens to a lot of people. Not to everybody, but it does happen to a lot of people. I know that I want to get a raise this year. I know I want to be promoted this year in my job. And I think I've done everything right, but it's still not happening. So these are things that cause the struggle for us. And, let me just take a moment and kind of recap what some of those things are. So it's just the basic feeling of struggle. Like you're not where you want to be. You want to move forward. You need a change and you've tried everything and nothing's changing. You feel like the more you struggle, things get harder, not easier, right? The more you focus on that. No matter how good your intentions are, it doesn't matter, nothing's working. It's you still feel stuck and you feel like you're being held back. And one of the responses to that, and I know because I used to do this a lot, was to stick my head in the sand. It's just like I call it the ostrich method, right? You just stick your head right in the sand and you hope and you wish or you distract yourself thinking that, ignorance is bliss. If I don't focus on it, it'll take care of itself. And I'm telling you here, that just does not happen. That makes it bigger. When you just ignore it, unless it's something simple and something easy that has nothing to do with you directly, it's going to become more of an issue. It's like an untended wound, right? It just festers and becomes bigger down the road. So, um, these are things that affect us significantly. Um, oh, here we have a comment here. It says, "I'm terrified of heights." Yeah, I don't blame you on that. Me too. The thought of flying was so scary, but when I did, I actually survived. You're right. My thoughts were like monsters growing legs. And it's true. And, thank you for your comment because one of the things that, and I know I say this a lot, and again, no disrespect, no, there's absolutely no judgment here. But when we have this funny thing that when we, just because we think it's true, and that's not true, that's total BS. When we have a thought, the way our brains work is we have a whole section of our brain that was designed for the caveman, that was designed to protect us. And in today's day and age, it oftentimes protects us from nobody in particular or no situation in particular. In the case of flying though, that is a real thought, that is a real fear, and a lot of people have it. But I'd like to challenge you in that, especially people who do fly, right? How many times have you gotten in an airplane and you've landed safely? I'd like to say I'd hope it would be every time. And y- you know, it's about kind of diving into those fears and asking yourselves, is it true? Where's the proof? Is it, you know, can I prove that people fly every day and fly and land safely? Can I prove that, I myself have done it? Can I prove that there's greater risk out in the world if that's what you can? It depends on the questions you ask yourself. you can always find evidence. And it's interesting because I was talking with my son recently who tends to be more on the can't do versus the can do, and it's as a coach, it's kind of frustrating to have a child like that, but he's in his 20s and he thinks that he knows everything. So I he was telling me about the negativity bias, and his belief is that everybody has it. And I'm curious, you know, why that would be the case. And I think it's just easier to, especially if it's to think well of ourselves versus, you know, oh, I can't do that or I couldn't ever do that. What if we change that? What if when you have that negative thought, you say, okay, I have the negative thought, but what if it was the opposite? What if it was fine? What if I would succeed? What if I will be okay? What if, you know, I can learn and meet an amazing person by having this conversation that I think I'm uncomfortable having with somebody new. We create struggles for ourselves, and when you step back and look at it from from a non-emotional objective place, it's it almost seems crazy that we do that. And one of the other questions that I like to I put out there is, do you feel like your life has gone completely off track and you're not even close to where you thought you would be? And that question for me is super powerful because I had a postcard almost like send me off the deep end, right? It destroyed me for like 3 weeks, 2 weeks. I received a postcard about, oh my god, almost 20 years ago now, and it threw me into a tailspin. A simple little postcard, very benign. Except when I looked at it, it was the postcard to my 20th high school reunion. That said to me that 20 years had gone by and I had no clue where they went. And from that, I mean, I started before in my personal growth, my personal development, track for me, but that just smacked me in the face. And that's what we do as people. We don't pay attention to what's important in our lives. It's always a when then. When this happens, then I'll do that. And oh, I have time and I can do this and it it doesn't always happen that way. I wasted 20 years of my life. Now I had two beautiful children. I would do that again for them, but I had nothing to show for it. Nobody ever told me it was okay to want things for myself, that it was okay to say stop the merry-go-round and stop reacting to things and start designing things for myself. So that's where I get super passionate for people. And sometimes it's easier to see in others than it is in ourselves. So if you're into wanting growth in your life or into wanting to take things to the next level or to have things be different, you have to change the way things have always been. What's that saying? um you cannot solve you cannot solve a problem with the same thinking that put you in it, something along those lines. It was an Einstein quote. But there's also so many other people that have experienced the where they are in their life. That's the thinking that you did yesterday. So let's change tomorrow by thinking changing the thinking that you're doing today. So I want to share in the few minutes that we have left, I want to share with you um, my simple method that will help you if you're feeling this a lot of stuck like this. Um, Before I do, I see that we have another comment here. It says, isn't it better to play out the negativity so not to set ourselves up? I'm going to say yes and to that. And it's not necessarily play out the negativity, use anticipation, right? The ability to anticipate and to think through different scenarios, right? Um, let's take, for example, having a conversation with somebody that you don't know in a work party setting. Okay. So they could, if you walked up to someone, right, what could happen? They could look at you and say, I don't want to talk to that person, which would, and they could walk away. That could hurt your feelings. Let's say you walk up to them and they walk away. Your first thought is probably going to be something along the lines of, what did I do? Like, what's wrong with me? Why don't they want to talk to me? Maybe they got a phone call. Maybe somebody across the room called them over before they saw you coming. So they didn't even reject, they weren't rejecting you. They didn't know what it was, right? So maybe you walk up to them and you have a conversation and it goes really, really well. And find out that you've learned a lot about this person. And you guys, in fact, have a lot in common. And maybe you set up a tennis date with them. You walk up, you have a conversation, and it's like, nice guy, nice person. Um, Not really somebody that I would interact with, but I'm happy I said hello. Okay. Like, so you can talk through the negativity and go down different avenues. And if you do the anticipate game, if you will, beforehand, if it's the airline, anticipate what you would do in certain circumstances, but understand that what the your brain's going to lie to you, and it's always going to make it bigger than it really was. I'm sure if you looked back for some proof of that, you could find it easily, because I know mine has done that. I've Let's say, take the airplane, right? You work yourself up in getting on the airplane. You finally get on the airplane and you get off, and you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad, right? So there's proof of that. So we're running out of time, and we can pick this conversation up again. But I really want to just leave you with these 5 things, and I want to invite you to try it out, see how it works. I'd love to hear it if you do. Send an email to hello at Life Coach University. It would be great. I'd love to hear it. But the first one is check check the chaos, check the overwhelm, check the struggle, right? We talked a bit about that earlier. Record it, write it all down, get it out of your head and put it on paper. And then examine each one, question everything. Is it true? Is it serving me? Is this really insurmountable? Honestly, the only thing that you cannot get around is death and taxes, as far as I know, right? There's always a way. Come at it from that vantage point. There's always a way. And then brainstorm, go for the solutions, right? Brainstorm ways through or around each one. And this is oftentimes helpful to do with other people, to do with your friends, to do with your family, to do with a coach. Um, you know, it's just easier when there's more than one brain doing the brainstorming. And then pick one, choose, right? Choose one that you're going to take an action on and then implement that action. So those are the 5 things: check, record, examine, solutions, choose, and implement. And I promise you, then if you go back to your list and you choose another and implement that, and then choose another and implement that, that's the growth method. And that, honestly, just getting off that merry-go-round will change your life. And I can tell you, the hardest part is really seeing what's going on, checking it out. That's going to be the hardest part, but you can do it, and things can change if that's what you're looking for. So I'm blessed that you joined me today. Thank you so much, and I hope you found a nugget of wisdom, and I hope that you found it helpful. And I'd love to engage in conversation along the way. I'll see you next week at this time. please check out lifecoachuniversity.com. Please help us spread the word. If you found anything valuable in my sessions or in any of the other coaches' sessions, if you have something that you would love to hear us talk about, hello at Life Coach University. I'm sure I know I would, and I'm going to speak for my fellow coaches, even though I probably shouldn't. But I'm sure they'd be willing to jump into if there's into a conversation that somebody would like to have. So thank you so much. Let's go. Let's grow. Have a great day.